Mm, mm, mm. I have the worst habit of hitting that when I'm not ready for it. I swear to the gods. I like to do that subconsciously. I'm like, and it's against myself, which means I probably should be in therapy. Anyhow, anyhow, I had a really good dream, and I had a Springtrap dream, which we all know was Loki, but all dressed as Springtrap, so it doesn't take 5 times as long for me to translate the dream. And I used to have dreams about, you know, Springtrap and the other characters when I was intensely doing the other channel. That made sense. And I could have chalked this up to I've been working with and thinking about this new game that Springtrap's in. But this was a different kind of dream. I'm waking up and I'm kind of standing in this very dark, shadowy area. And Springtrap's standing with me, only, he doesn't look like he looks in the new game, looks more like he did in the third game, and I think he's holding me close to him, if I remember. Like, somehow, you know how it happens in dreams, he's holding me close to him, but at the same time, I'm standing far enough away that I can, like, crane my head up and look out, because he's, like, 6 foot something. And he's telling me I understand now. In that deep voice he has. And he's telling me, and that's like half the charm of the character, to be honest. He's telling me he understands now. He understands that what I needed was, instead of like all the fighting you have to do in the game, what I needed was the vulnerability. What I needed was, his vulnerability. At first he said weakness, and then he corrected himself. He says, no, it's not weak to need someone, it's vulnerability. That I needed to see the vulnerability, and that I needed to see the, what it was like to be trapped for decades and not have anyone there, and what it was like to be him. And I needed to see the broken, tattered Springtrap. I didn't need to see this all-powerful Benza level genius maniac that, wants to just crawl through the fence and get me. And it was very touching. And then he said, to look at what's been happening with the health insurance and to look at everything else in my life. And I understood at this point it was Loki. And that he would always be there for me. He would always be there and protecting me. And it was just a very warm and comforting dream. And I knew it was Loki in my mind, but I still got the sense of the Springtrap characters. I see him in my mind as this very strong, protective figure. When you've been knocked down hard enough by life, and I'm not trying to make you sad, sometimes you empathize with the villain, because the fandom pretty much, Scott never said anything, but the fandom's pretty much figured out this gentleman's life was pretty terrible for him to go down the path he did. He did not, like, just go crazy out of nowhere. Something terrible happened to him. And so a lot of the fandom that can relate emphasizes with him. Not everyone. Some people hate him, wish he'd die in a fire, though it's never worked before. And those of us that do emphasize with him, he's kind of this tragic figure where he's destroyed and battered on the outside, the giant bunny suit, and he's destroyed and battered on the inside because he was in a spring-lock suit. And what they do, these don't even make logical sense, so don't try to follow this logically. They hold the robot parts out, and a human can put them on. Unfortunately, because Scott Cawthon thought of them, if you move too much in them, or you sweat in the suit, and if you put on a suit, you sweat, bang! The robot will decompress and go right through your body. This happened to him. He should be dead. It happened to a bunch of other people, and it killed them instantly. Springtrap being Springtrap survived. And, that's part of the character too. And it was Loki's way of saying, it's okay to have vulnerability, that I don't have to be so strong. One of the things Loki will do, at least it kind of sacred deal he made with me, and I'm sure he's made it with a lot of you, is that he's very well aware of some of the stuff that's going on in her life, but if we'll hide it from him, if we'll put up a front, he, you know, even though he doesn't like seeing us in pain, he'll let us do that. And that's a thing to remember with him, that we have to take our vulnerability to him, and we have to be willing to be vulnerable as he is. You know, he's willing to show that broken side to us, and we should be, you know, in turn, even though it's very scary, to show that broken side to him. And so it's, you know, it's a blessing that I had that dream. It was not the world's most cheerful dream, but then he says, you know what we should do? And I'm like, what? He says, you should order a pizza. And I'm like, oh my God, no, Loki, it's so expensive. And he's like, no, you should order one. So I ended up ordering like 5 or 6 meals worth of food. I mean, it's going to be like a extra large pizza, and they're throwing in the Pepsi for free, but extra large pizza, Pepsi, wings, and sweet breadsticks. So yeah, there's going to be a ton of food coming. So thank God it took place in a pizzeria, and it didn't take place in, like, I don't know, chocolate factory or something. Oh my God, I'd be like 10 times better than I am now. But there you go. And it was actually a blessing. And Loki can do that with us. And it's important too for me to get out there that he used a character that he understood why I liked the character. He finally understood. Because when I passed out in exhaustion, I guess Loki felt free to search my data banks, or however you want to call it. And I've seen people that relate him to the Joker, which I've done in the past, and I've seen people that relate him to other characters. You know, any character that reminds you of him, he will carry on that relationship with you, because it usually lets him get to a vulnerable place in you that you wouldn't let anyone else. And Loki is Loki. He doesn't give 2 cents for what he has to change into to be close to us and get the job done. It doesn't offend him. He once told me that he really doesn't have what you'd call a true form, or it would be one of those things where he smiled and he says, you remember Dogma? And I'm like, oh, shut up, Loki. And if you've never seen Dogma, when the angel was explaining to her how they made man, like, Adam heard the voice of God and just exploded. So he's like, you could not take my magnificence. I'm like, uh-huh. Yeah, we treat each other very well. We tease each other. We've been together so long. He knows it's teasing. He knows it's not, you know, me trying to be cruel to him or anything. But the God awe, unless he wants it to be there, it's kind of gone. But I wanted to share that to you and kind of remind you guys it's okay if you use Joker, or you use Marvel Loki, or you use... I've used Foxy in the past for him. And he kind of has hinted to me that, you know, something was pushing me. A lot of times if you're talking to a favorite character in your head, it might be Loki you're talking to. You just never know. So yeah, so if you're talking to that favorite character in your head and they're taking care of you and they're watching over you, it might very well be Loki. So I hope you guys like this, and I feel a lot better. I'm still a little sleepy, but not too much. I'm working on the coffee, and then the food will come. Glorious food. So I will see you guys soon. Bye-bye.